Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to open the Polk County Board of Commissioners. It is July 26th. Extra agendas are on the table. All commissioners are present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up is approval of minutes for July 19th.
I move to approve the minutes.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And the City of Dallas Urban Renewal Plan, Mr. Charlie Mitchell, Elaine Howard, and Brian Latta. So we just got through it coming up.
Good morning, commissioners. As you know, the city is in the midst of the process to form a second urban renewal district in the city of Dallas. As part of that public process, we are statutorily required to present to the Board of Commissioners. Our consultant, Elaine Howard, is joining us remotely, and she'll actually be the one doing the presentation this morning. But obviously, Brian and I are here as well to answer any questions you may have. And we're just grateful for the partnership that Polk County has with the city of Dallas on a number of items and issues. This is not an exception. Spoke about this concept probably a couple of years ago with some of the commissioners and Greg Hanson, and happy we're at this point. And I think Elaine's put together a really good plan, and we're excited for the opportunity for economic growth that this new district will have the opportunity to give us in our community and account. So with that, we'll turn over to Elaine.
Hello, I'm Elaine Howard, the consultant working on this project, and I am sharing my screen and hopefully you can see it. Thank you. I am going through a brief PowerPoint, and then we'll be able to stop and answer questions. If anybody has any questions during the PowerPoint, I cannot see you, so just feel free to interrupt if you need to. I can see just, a thumbnail of you on my screen. So my name is Elaine Howard. I've been working on this project with Nick Popenick of Tiberius Solutions. Nick does all of the financial analysis on the urban renewal plans that I work on. We will go over the role of the county, the background of the project, financial capacity, projects, taxing district impacts, and the process and schedule. As Charlie said, the role of the county is to provide feedback on the South Dallas Urban Renewal Plan within the taxing district consult and confer period. The consult and confer period is a process required by statute of 45 days from when the city of Dallas notifies you that they are looking at the potential of a new urban renewal plan. Any written comments that they receive from any taxing districts must be addressed within the ordinance that they review for potential adoption of the plan. Written comments may be submitted to charlie.mitchell@dallas.or.gov. In April of this year, the city of Dallas contracted with my firm in Tiberius to complete a feasibility study to look at the potential of urban renewal in South Dallas. The city council reviewed that feasibility study and directed staff to prepare an urban renewal plan. And again, the role of the county is to receive a public briefing, including the maximum indebtedness of the plan. This is the proposed boundary of the area. You can see by looking at the tax lots that a lot of the area is undeveloped and in fairly large parcels. The intent is to provide the infrastructure to this area to allow it to develop and provide economic prosperity to the community. I'm just going to give a brief urban renewal background. I think most of you know how urban renewal works, but for anybody who might be watching this on the internet. This is just a basic on how tax increment finance works. When an urban renewal district is formed, the county assessor, and I saw that your county assessor is there today, will establish what's called frozen base of the urban renewal area. That is the total assessed value of all the properties within the area at the time it's formed. All the taxing districts will continue receiving their taxes off of that frozen base. Any increase in assessed value and therefore the property taxes off of that increase go to the urban renewal agency for doing projects and programs within the area over the time frame of the area. At the time that the area expires in the future, all of the taxing districts will benefit from the amount of taxes within that area. As you can see on the map, because it is largely underdeveloped, there is not a lot of tax revenue presently being generated out of that area. And until infrastructure is installed, it's not anticipated that that area will be able to develop without some assistance. Maximum indebtedness is the total amount of money that is set in the adoption of an urban renewal plan that can be spent over the lifetime of the urban renewal area. In this chart, it shows what is termed net TIF. TIF is tax increment financing, tax increment proceeds. That net TIF number is 47,600,000. That number is higher than the maximum indebtedness number of 41,600,000, just due to the interest that is spent on the debt that is incurred in implementing the urban renewal plan. The statutory definition of the maximum indebtedness excludes the debt interest that is paid. The capacity of the area, taking that $41.6 million and bringing it back to today's 2022 dollars, is about $23,100,000. What that means is when we looked at projects for the plan and divided the potential cost to those projects, that is the number we use to look at the cost of projects, knowing as those projects get undertaken in the future, they will cost more, up to that $41.6 million of maximum indebtedness. We broke out the potential capacity in 5-year increments, and you can see the first 5 years is relatively low, $1.7 million. That's because the way urban renewal works is off of the increase in development within the area. And that development starts out slowly. And as the city is able to put in infrastructure, it increases over time. Really, most importantly about the urban renewal plan is the projects that the city is proposing to undertake within the area. These projects are divided into two main project categories: public infrastructure, facilities and planning, and then private sector economic development. The public infrastructure, facilities and planning are the different infrastructure needs that are within the area that will allow it to develop. So a floodway study on the mill site of North Fork Ash Creek, Monmouth Cutoff Road, Hugo Street improvements, mill site transportation improvements, new east-west transportation corridors through the mill site, Jefferson Street, Main Street couplet improvements to the south to connect into the current mill site, Ash Creek improvements. A portion of that creek presently lies underneath the mill site. Other area roadway, pedestrian, bicycle, and rail improvements throughout the area. Water service extensions where needed. Sanitary sewer service upgrades and extensions where needed. Purple pipe development, which is recycled wastewater for industrial uses. And trail system improvements and extensions, potentially along Ash Creek and at the south of the current mill site. Within the private sector economic development category is site certification assistance under the state of Oregon's industrial site certification program. That is something that will allow the property owners on those sites to more readily find development developers who want to develop within that area. New and existing business assistance programs, city fee and system development charges waiver assistance for targeted businesses that would be repaid through the urban renewal funds, targeted commercial marketing, targeted mill site improvements, and then administration and staffing, as there are required administrative costs with any urban renewal area. The estimated costs of those projects are divided out by the two main categories. So 10,750,000 in public infrastructure, facilities, and planning, and about 11.5 million in private sector economic development, and a nominal amount of 858,000 over 30 years for administration, staffing, and finance fees. So those are shown in the constant 2022 dollars, and then also in the expected year of expenditure dollars, meeting that maximum indebtedness number of $41.6 million. The estimated impacts of all of the taxing districts are in the plan and report that was distributed to the county a few weeks ago. This shows the estimated impacts both to Polk County and to the 4-H Garden Extension District, Garden Forest Extension District. So, those impacts start out slowly. In fiscal year 2024, the impacts are about $14,500 to the county and $633 to the 4-H and Extension. Those increase over time as a result of the new development that is expected within the area. The Polk County total amount over the 30 years is a little under $7 million, and the 4-H extension amount is a little over $300,000. And again, that's over the 30-year time period of urban renewal. The important thing to remember is that these projections are based on anticipated growth within the area, and especially for this area and in many urban renewal areas across the state, that growth probably would not happen but for the improvements allowed. So the county probably wouldn't be receiving other than a 3% on vacant land, increased taxes on the majority of that area. We're also required to give an estimate of what those estimated revenues would be for the taxing districts the year after termination of the urban renewal area. This table is also in the report that accompanies the plan, and this view shows all the different taxing districts. For Polk County itself, from the frozen base right now, you're getting $123,439 off of what we anticipate is going to be the assessed value of the area. In the future, when this terminates, there would be an additional $673,000 for a total of a little under $800,000 for the area at the termination of the plan. For the 4-H and Extension District, that amount is presently $5,395 and goes up to a little under $35,000. The process and schedule is the city is now within the consult and confer period that goes by statute to August 5th. There is a first city council hearing on August 1st to allow citizens to provide the opportunity for citizens to hear more about the plan. There have been a number of city council meetings throughout the feasibility study and as in preparation for the plan already. So the first reading of the ordinance would be on August 1st and the public hearing. And then that city council will vote to determine whether to establish the district on August 15th. And that is the end of my presentation. I can stop share, or if anyone wants me to go back to the map or the project list, I'd be happy to do that.
For more presentation?
That's it.
That's it. Okay.
So, yeah, we're here to answer your questions.
Start us off.
I've written down several. So I'm gonna start from my last question and go backwards. From your estimated revenues after termination of the URA. So I understand this. Does that imply that that is the end of the urban renewal taxation program? So
Yes.
30 years, what you're telling me right now with this estimate and these totals, 30 years is the life of this.
Correct.
And is there any way that I can assume that it won't be rolled over beyond that 30 years with that statement?
So there's not I can't guarantee what happens in the future, right? The future's the future. I will say that, in my experience of what Rick Hansen will probably say as well, is that urban renewal districts, if they're not meeting their financial estimates, they can go through an amendment process, a substantial amendment process, to extend either the duration or increase the maximum indebtedness. There's things that they can do to prolong a district. The council's vision and Charlie and I's vision for this district is really to foster development of our industrial lands, a lot of which are vacant, partially vacant, and underutilized. And so, I have confidence in our vision for this district is to terminate it as fast as possible, because the city has a vested interest in receiving that tax revenue into our general fund and not keep it in urban renewal. So, as I sit here today, I would say with confidence that it would be my goal to end this district as fast as we can, meeting the objectives that have been outlined today.
And Elaine can elaborate on this too, but statutorily, the district is really held to the maximum indebtedness, not necessarily the time frame. It's based on a dollar frame. That makes sense. So 30 years is the planning horizon, but the district is held to the maximum indebtedness number. So when we reach that number, the district is over. We could reach that number in 20 years. We could reach it in 25 years.
But you can also amend it
We could also amend
and
it.
up it and all those things. So there is no guarantee that
There's no guarantee.
City of Salem has some that have been 60 years.
Right, yeah, and I would say, when you do a substantial amendment, and Elaine can talk about this, but depending on the type of amendment that you do, a substantial amendment requires approval of taxing districts, not just the city council. So, if we came in and said, hey, we want to increase our maximum indebtedness from 40 million that it is today roughly to say, $70 million, that's going to require a vote of the taxing districts and their boards to approve that amendment. So there's process, that we have to go through, and based on the makeup of the taxing districts that are here today, Polk County, if you did not want to have us increase our maximum indebtedness, that required that substantial amendment process, it would not move forward. So you would have the opportunity, the board would in the future. If that
Don't
was
you
in place.
just need a majority of the votes though?
You need 75% taxable value vote. So
And we are over 25% of that.
I believe that's correct. Elaine, have you done the math on that?
I think the city and district.
Yeah, it is usually the city, the county, and the school district. But let me give a little clarification on that. The way the statute is written, the urban renewal agencies area's maximum indebtedness may be increased by 20% of its original maximum indebtedness as indexed by inflation by the city council itself. Anything over that amount requires the 75% of the permanent rate levy amount of the taxing districts. And again, that's usually the city, the county, and the school districts.
And there's no limit to the number of times the city council can do that 20%,
They may do it once.
but just once, okay.
But
So
you can modify a district geographically and re-up this again.
So you can also do a substantial amendment for the boundary, and Elaine, there's limits on how big that can grow.
Yes.
That includes both the proposed district and the current district, as it relates to the whole area of the city.
There are two limitations on acreage. The first is for an existing urban renewal area, you may add 1% as a minor amendment by the city council. And that's just 1%, not multiple 1%. It's adding up to a total of 1%. Anything over that amount has to be a substantial amendment that goes through the same process of Urban Renewal Agency, Plan Commission, City Council hearing, notice to the county. The city itself may only have up to a total, excuse me, of 25% of their acreage in urban renewal areas.
Okay, so the other question I had, I think Charlie, you've answered it, is the maximum indebtedness question. So that is total revenue generated.
Right. And as Elaine demonstrated, that doesn't include any interest that we would be paying.
Right, and that's above the base, correct?
That's new tax increment generated.
Yeah, so in that slide that you showed, there was the net TIF. That would include the interest payments and things like that. Maximum indebtedness was the.
It's 41.6.
47. And then my last question was, is there a limit? I see the estimates for admin charges, and I'm assuming that's, what was like 1.5
800.
over.
It's
the
$822.
30-year.
It's 1.5 over the life.
I'm sorry, what?
It's 800 and some in $22.
Yeah,
It's 1.5 over the life.
okay, and that's the limit of administrative.
No.
Elaine, is there a limit on administrative charges that we have in urban renewal?
There is not a limit on the administrative charges. Excuse me. You have put in this number, but as you are implementing the plan, if you find that you have to hire someone to manage larger construction projects or something like that, you could increase this administration amount. But right now, it's a fairly modest amount over the lifetime of the urban renewal area.
And I would say just our history on that, Commissioner Polk, is with the downtown urban renewal district, our administrative costs, pay for a very small percentage of, one staff member's salary. I believe it's between 1 to 3% of Charlie's overall salary that comes out of urban renewal. And then we also pay for, we do an annual report that's required. And we hire a consultant to help us put together that report and the financial information. So we pay a little bit out of that. I mean, our expenditures out of the downtown district are a very small percentage of the overall, because we want to be able to spend that money in the way that it's designed for, to get investment in the downtown businesses and property. There. Thank you.
Well, I support this initiative, and I think we all in the region have a stake. That's okay. A stake in its success. And we want to avoid a languishing urban renewal district that just sort of sits there and gets amended in perpetuity, right? So I'm curious about the private sector eco-devo portion, what your vision is on that portion. I understand infrastructure and all that good stuff, but just curious what that is. And I asked partly because we have a little bit of eco-devo grant money that we program out. Just kind of curious if there's some opportunities there to partner.
Any policy, obviously.
Yeah.
We're at this very early stage, but my vision is that we would partner with private sector development as needed, as required, to allow development. As you saw, there was a piece of that was offsetting any of the fees that we would impose on development through our own other sources. So we would make our other funds whole, if you will, by offsetting it through their renewal fund to allow that development to occur. So that to the developer, essentially they wouldn't have to pay those fees or a reduced amount or whatever. So just basically putting, cash on the table to facilitate private sector development, that would occur in that area. And again, if you look at that area, if you look at the zoning, it's largely industrial. It's almost 90% industrial. So that's the kinds of uses that we're talking about. We're not talking about housing, whether that's good or bad, right or wrong. That's not the focus of this district. The focus of this district really is on industrial. The few minor exceptions.
I think it's important for people to know that this is not a zoning change. I do have a question related to housing, and that is, let's say this is wildly successful and you bring tons of jobs into the area. You already have very, very tight vacancy rates in Dallas. How do you see this affecting your future housing needs?
So
So if I can jump in to answer a little bit, answer the last question, then I'll start this question and then Charlie can finish. Another one of the projects that was identified on the list there in the presentation is the state site certification program. And so that program is actually staffed by one of our planning commissioners in Dallas. So he was very interested as we presented this to the planning commission. But that program is essentially built to mitigate and eliminate the barriers to development on industrial lands in the state. So that the state can say, any wetland, impacts on the property have already been, pre-mitigation set up, ready to roll. And just getting these sites development ready, right? Shovel ready from the time a developer or a business wants to come in and say, hey, this is the property we're looking at, can we go? And that site certification program has been very successful once the site goes through that process. And they check off the wetlands, the floodplain issues, if there's any slopes or other things, barriers that might preclude or be a challenge for development to occur. Once they go through all that process and become certified, those properties do not last long. They get picked up right away because the businesses and the industries know, hey, if that meets my geographic needs, my infrastructure needs, I'm on it, right? Because time is money in their world and they don't have to go through the time of mitigating all those things that's already been done. So a good portion of our money for the equitable piece is going to go to that program and encourage property owners that want to sell, right? They want to develop their land, but they know they have problems and barriers. We want to be able to solve that up front and then make those sites shovel ready to be able to foster and encourage that development in addition to the incentives that Charlie talked about. On the housing side, we recently completed our housing needs analysis a few years back. We demonstrated that we had a surplus of residential low density land to the tune of about 300 acres over the 20-year planning horizon. So that's 300 acres in addition to what we need in the next 20 years for single family residential. On the medium density residential side, we identified we had a 20-acre deficit over the 20-year planning horizon. And on the high density residential side, we had a 1-acre deficit within our UGB. So we're certainly not looking at a UGB expansion process. We have plenty of land on the residential side within our urban growth boundary. It does require annexation and rezoning of those properties to be able to be built. Much of those areas are or could be served by utilities without a lot of pain. There are some areas as you get towards the southwest, up near Bridlewood and the area behind that, and the area east of Kings Valley Highway on the south side, that have recently, the latter portion has recently been kind of unlocked with some sewer extension work that we did a couple of years ago. And so we feel very confident that we have the land supply with our urban growth boundary over the next 20 years and beyond to serve residential housing. And it's just a matter of getting it built. As you know, or if you don't know, Dallas is growing very fast. Over the 3-year look back over the last 46 years, we've added about 500 houses, each 3-year cycle to the inventory, 500 units in Dallas. Really good, really fast growth. We're having to make sure we're keeping pace on the infrastructure side of that, both from our water supply and sewer capacities, but all that work's going on as we're going out. So
I just want to add that we also know that many Dallas residents commute out of Dallas for employment.
Right.
So it's our hope that if we create more employment opportunities in Dallas, residents that are already here won't be commuting out of Dallas.
Sure.
So the net effect won't be maybe as pronounced as you might think. So I don't see residential growth and industrial growth necessarily being corollary in Dallas because there's already this exodus of workers that are working.
Thanks.
Well, I see the need for these urban growth boundaries. I mean, you're so restricted and we need jobs. So, development areas are much needed. I just looked at the impact on Polk County and I know we've gotten some heat of buying the bank and how we took that off your tax rolls for the city of Dallas. I think that kind of is a minuscule compared to this number. But working jointly to make sure that we bring jobs to our region is something that we need to do. So they've already been to ask all the questions I was going to ask. Have you looked into the railroad line and is it feasible to rebuild that and bring that into that area?
So that's been explored a few times as development opportunities have presented themselves. It does take a significant investment by the railroad to improve their line to provide service with speeds that, you know, aren't 5 miles per hour, which is the current limitation. And so our plan right now, I don't think addresses rail specifically. But if, you know, the need presented itself, there was businesses that needed the rail, there's partnership opportunities, and I think, you know, a minor amendment to add that project to the plan, while taking something else off the plan and not, you know, increasing indebtedness or anything like that could be an opportunity in the future. So this renewal area could facilitate, you know, participation in a rail project if needed.
Yeah, it's really customer dependent. You know, it just depends on if the need is there and if the need is of a level intense enough to get the interest of the rail. Because it's all business for the rail company. So that's why they don't really like talking to us, because they know we're not really bringing anything to the table. But if you bring to the table a customer that will provide X number of rail trips per day, then that gets done. So it really just depends on who lands there and needs the rail.
Well, Bannister Urban is very large, and you've got a piece of property for no matter what kind of industry is looking to come. So, yeah, is what it is. So good luck, and I hope you can get us a lot of jobs quickly. It'd be nice to get some attention. Probably get some people, investors coming in.
That's our hope as well. And, you know, the timing of this is important for us because, you know, you kind of need the catalyst project to get the increment financing going. And we've had some recent successes within the area that, you know, I think once their taxes and their investments hit the tax rolls, you know, we'll go right into this district and we'll get us off the ground right away. One of the criticisms or frustrations of the urban renewal is that it takes a little bit of time to build up the increment if you don't have those catalyst projects. And so we've intentionally included some pieces of property that are under subdivision review right now that will bring, you know, increment revenue into the district right away. We also had an industry that relocated to Dallas recently, you know, capturing that revenue as well. It gives us a jump start right away that we can leverage, you know, that money immediately into additional investments in the short term. So I'm optimistic and hopeful that we can close out this district before what's in the plan. Greg's giving me the good luck.
Can you tell me how many cities have ended their urban renewal early?
I can't tell you that. Elaine might be able to tell you that, but that would certainly be my goal.
I know it's your goal, but you won't be here for the 30 years life of the urban renewal district, is my guess.
Likely two of us will.
I'm hoping to be here for 16 more years before I might contemplate retirement, and if I can do it in that time frame, I will.
And I believe you, but it's also a council vote too. I hate urban renewal, but most county administrators hate urban renewal because it takes tax revenue from the county and redirects it to the city. So I've rarely, if ever, heard of a urban renewal district being ended early. I hope in this case you could achieve that. I've heard of a lot that are extended. So the 30 years in my mind usually ends up being 40 or 50. The other thing that concerns me is you are in a lot of industrial land. You're going to bring industry, hopefully, to Dallas that is going to put a lot of pressure on Polk County infrastructure, our roads and that. But yet we're losing almost $7 million worth of revenue that we will now have to find to replace an even greater burden on our infrastructure, which we're tasked with either going out for a bond because we don't have urban renewal district authority or that, or we have to find it within our means. And that's the disappointing thing of all urban renewal districts to me is cities use urban renewal monies to divert obligations that they already have within their city. And they rob Peter to pay Paul. And that's, again, from a county administrator standpoint, not a economic growth standpoint and all those things. So I have to get that out there just to feel good about what I do, but I do sincerely believe you, Brian, that you would end it early, or would at least attempt to end it early. If you get a big investment early, a industry that comes in and puts $300 million, $400 million, obviously you talk about a kickstart, that's a kickstart. And you would have the ability to end it early, or you could extend it up. So it's those kind of things that bother me, but we have no ability to stop it. It's an obligate. I mean, you're obligated to tell us about it, but we have no influence over whether it gets modified or not. It's basically a city decision, and it is what it is.
I appreciate your comments. And
You were not surprised either.
I understand your perspective. And I probably saying the same thing if I were in your chair.
And I would probably be doing the same thing you're doing if I was in your chair. So, you know, it is what it is, and I understand it.
And for the constituents of the county, we hope you're very successful.
No,
We can turn this around quick.
thank you, Commissioner. I wouldn't be pursuing this if I don't think that it would be successful. Looking at our track record here in Dallas of urban renewal, the downtown district, in my opinion, was not done appropriately. This one is done appropriately. We feel very confident in the amount of available land that is redevelopable. We feel confident with the programs that are available that we are excited about implementing and helping the property owners and businesses to make those investments right away. And so, I have a lot more confidence in this district than our history here in Dallas. That being said, we've even changed our policies in the downtown district to make that more effective. And so, we're working our best to minimize and the duration of these districts here within Polk County. So, appreciate the support.
It's worth noting too that our intent is to have the city council make the Economic Development Commission that the city already has in place as the advisory committee for this new district, which Mr. Pope sits on that body. So at least for now, you actually have some inside oversight.
A few more questions. So you can't let this go without at least asking, because you invoked the schools. What's the impact to the schools in this?
Yeah, so Elaine can probably describe this better, but I'll take a stab at it since I'm here and she can correct me when I'm wrong. So the state school fund is administered by the state and not local districts, right? So the taxes are collected locally, that money is given over to the state, and then it's redistributed to the schools based on a per pupil basis, right? And so urban renewal affects the overall state school fund. It has a nominal impact, pennies on the dollar, or fractions of pennies on the dollar for a local impact here in Dallas, right? And what I mean by that is, an urban renewal district in Tualatin or Ontario would have just as much impact on Dallas as this district has on those cities, right? And this district here. So it really is a very nominal impact to the state school fund overall. And my opinion, bringing jobs, living wage jobs, family jobs that, would encourage families to move here and stay here has a better impact on our local school system, because that means there's more children in the schools, more revenue from the state school fund coming to the area. So I think urban renewal has the opportunity to actually impact school district funding locally in a positive way than the negative overall impact it has to the state school fund.
So does it have any impact, and forgive me because I don't know this, but I think it's a common question that lots of people would have. Does it have impact on levy or bond process for schools?
No, it does not.
It does not.
It does not. Urban renewal only impacts permanent rate levies. So any geo bonds or local option
It
levies.
doesn't affect our public safety levy either.
And then,
Yeah, only permanent rate levies.
and then finally, again, just for everyone to have an understanding of what does this do, if anything, to tax benefit schemes such as enterprise zones?
So that's also a really good question. Urban renewal and enterprise zone kind of act in conflict with each other, right? Because urban renewal is about receiving the tax increment, the property taxes from investments, new investments, where enterprise zone allows an abatement of property taxes for a certain duration of time. And so, while you have an enterprise zone applicant, to encourage their investment, you might not receive, the urban renewal district would not receive tax revenue for the duration that they're in the abatement from the enterprise zone. I think, we would still utilize both tools, urban renewal and enterprise zone. So there's a little bit of a delay there. So a good example of that is the Centec building that company that came into the former Craig American Gas and Technology building. They received the standard enterprise zone abatement, so a 3-year tax abatement. If this urban renewal area is created, we would not receive their property taxes until that abatement ends right into the district. So that's how that works.
Thank you.
Jim, anything else?
Oh,
All right, you guys, make it happen, please. Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate the time.
thanks.
Master fee schedule and draft, Mr. Greg Hanson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, before you is the master fee schedule for the county. Each year, the county is required to establish its fees for the upcoming fiscal year. Most of the departments have very little, if any, changes. There are a number of departments that are always constantly changing. Community development is one of those, but a lot of theirs is state dictated for building permits and all those kind of things. The fair also usually has modifications to their fee schedule for building rental and those kind of things. Usually the fair increases are fairly minor in nature. They may go from main building $1,200 to main building $1,250. So those are the kind of fees changes that you're looking for, but we're required to do this once a year and only supposed to do it once a year. Changes throughout the year. If it's a new fee, I think you can add it, but if it's an existing fee that you should have been able to figure out while you were there, you're really not supposed to address that. And then we have a lot of fees like in behavioral health and those that are basically set by the state and that, and we just follow that as they make changes. But this is required. It usually has a resolution attached and those kind of things to solidify it, but it's on your Wednesday agenda for consent calendar tomorrow, unless you want to bring it off the consent calendar and go into more detail about some of these changes. And if you have department specific, I can bring down the department head to tell you exactly why it changed or didn't change.
So what is the reason, given our current rate of inflation, that we have so many departments and fees that are unchanged? Not an advocate for changing them, but I get cost of doing business is going up for everybody.
You could make minor $5, $10 changes. We don't receive a lot of our revenue through fees unless it's like building inspection fees or sanitation fees. And obviously OHA is its own animal. And the fairgrounds, they do raise fees, but most of our departments, the hourly fee, and we could increase it $3, $5, but we don't charge ourselves out that often. And if we do, it's usually by a contract, not an hourly fee basis. So those fall outside the fee. So that would be my answer in a nutshell.
Been looking over some of these fee differentiations. Some of them $2 or $3, some of them are $25 on a $2,600 fee. They raised it a whopping $26, $31. Very minimal, which for our constituents in the county, we run a really tight ship. We try to make things happen.
on the consent calendar for tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Okay. Other questions? Any unlisted items on the agenda? With that, the meeting's adjourned.